Turn it on. You hear the fuel pump prime. Our map load. So let's see if it'll crank. What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, as you guys saw in the last video, I got the engine in the hatch, so today I'm going to start buttoning up everything, get the wiring harness hooked up, get everything hooked up so it's ready to go ahead and turn over and start. Also pretty exciting, today the Infinity ECU was delivered from AEM. So this is the 506 Infinity unit, so super excited about this. Turns out I can't get it out. There we go. So yep, we got that. We're ready to make some horsepower now. So I'm going to go ahead and get the engine all buttoned up, and then we'll see how far we can get. Hopefully we finish up tonight, and then hopefully this weekend we might be able to hook that guy up and see what we can do about getting it to crank over. I have no idea what to expect. I do not have a base map tune or anything like that. I'm kind of hoping I can just put in the information about the engine, it's like cylinder size or engine size, injector size, all of that stuff, and then hopefully just get it to crank over and start. If not, I might be able to find a base map somewhere online, but who knows, we'll see. But for now, let's go ahead and get this thing buttoned up and get it ready to crank. Alright guys, got everything all hooked up, other than the axles really. Clutch line's on, shifter linkage is on, all the ground straps are on. So yeah, it's really coming along here, guys. So now I'm going to try to get the main harness on it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with the intake manifold on there, but I'm going to go ahead and try it with the intake manifold on. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this thing's coming along. We're almost ready. Alrighty guys, so I got the whole harness on the engine now. Everything should be hooked up, hopefully correctly. Well, it's been a while, but the only thing really left to do now is put axles on it and then put fluids in it. That's pretty much it. And we can hook up the ECU, but yeah, everything should be connected, hooked up. And yeah, man, we are ready to rip. So I'm gonna go ahead and I don't think I'm gonna be able to get the axles on it where it's sitting at right now because there's not a whole lot of clearance on this side. I'm gonna have to wait for Becky to get here at some point. We can push it out and put it over by the Audi, and then we'll be able to jack it up over there and put the axles in it. But yeah, we're pretty much there, guys. We are pretty much there. So honestly, I might just try to see if it'll start or crank at least without axles, because there's no point in putting them in if I have to pull everything right back out anyways, for whatever reason, who knows. Even if that clutch might have went in backwards, I really have no idea. So yeah, maybe we could try to start it up with no axles, but we'll get there when we get there, guys. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put the battery tray back in, so I can get the battery going there, and then I can start wiring or finishing up the wiring for the AEM harness. I still got to run that one wire through, splice it all together for the drive-by-wire, and then I got to run the other power wire to the fuse box for a 10 amp fuse. So we can go ahead and start on that, and let's knock it out. Okay, so I got all these wires spliced here. I'm actually going to splice these together with bullet connectors, so that way I can unplug them if I ever need to take this out for whatever reason, rather than just cutting the wire every time. To make it a little bit more convenient. Twist all these wires up. All right, grab the bullet connectors and we'll go ahead and put them on. This is the first time I've ever used these before, but I figured it'd be a little better than having to cut the wires every time to take this in and on and off, if for whatever reason I ever decided to take it back off. But these are pretty simple. They just snap together like that, and you can unclip them. Just want to make these all the male ends. All right, last one. Then I have to do the same thing with the wires on the harness. Okay, so all those are connected. So now all I gotta do is do the same thing with those ones, and then I can plug them all in. All right, you guys, so I got them all plugged up now. So everything is hooked up. So now I can go ahead, I'm just gonna wrap this in electrical tape to kind of keep it strong and make it look a little nicer and neater than this. And I can go ahead and plug it into my throttle body, and then all I gotta do is hook up the red power wire and we should be ready to rock. All right, guys, everything's all good and wired up in there. So now next thing I gotta do is put the battery tray in, like I said, put the battery in, hook it up, and then we can see what this thing will do. So, but that's gonna be for another night, guys. Unfortunately, it's getting kind of late, kind of dark, and I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause right here. I'm gonna make some dinner and enjoy the rest of my night. So when I get back out here and start working on this thing again, I'll see you. All right, guys, we're back out here. It is now the next day, maybe 2 days later, I don't really know. But anyways, I just got back from the store. I got some oil, filter, spark plugs, gear oil, which I actually use this Pennzoil Synchro Mesh. It's for GM engines, but I've been running it in this transmission, or GM transmissions, but I've been running it in my Honda transmission for the J series for years, and it works great. When I first got that transmission, it did grind a little bit in, I want to say, third gear. But anyways, ever since I started using the Synchro Mesh by Pennzoil in that transmission, it has not grinded at all. So I've just been running it religiously, basically, for the last probably 6 years in this transmission. So I picked up some more of that. So yeah, now we can go ahead. I'm going to put the axles in it, obviously, because I don't want to put the transmission fluid in it and it just dump all over the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of its corner, out here into the middle a little bit, so I can get to the other side of it, and then I'll go ahead and pop the axles in. We can top everything off with fluids, and then I started messing around. I didn't bring my laptop out here. I started messing around with the AEM Infinity software last night a little bit. They do not have a base map tune for the J series on there at the moment, but I went ahead and selected like an F series or something like that, and then changed all the settings so that way it's showing that it's a 6-cylinder. I have the proper firing order, injector size, all of that good stuff. So I don't know if that's gonna work to get the engine running, because I was watching a lot of videos on YouTube last night on how to like self-tune for a base map or whatever to kind of get the information that I got. A lot of it was talking about the lambda reading that goes to an O2 sensor, which I have right here, lambda, whatever. But it's not hooked up, and it doesn't, my O2 sensor plug doesn't fit in that. So I'm not really sure how necessary that is. I don't know. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and try to fire it up as is, see what happens, and then we'll go from there. So first things first, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the hatch out a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and get the axles in it, and then we'll get moving on this thing. Man, I really love the way this car sits with them slicks on it. Just looks super aggressive. Poking out like that all the way around. And the skinnies in the back. But we ready. So now we can go ahead and get the jack back up, put it right back on the jack stands, start getting the tires off of it, and then we can slap the axles back in there. All right, you guys, so I'm gonna start with the passenger side because it has the half shaft and it's just a pain. So get the hard side done first, and then we can move on to the other side. So I'm gonna grab the axle, we can go ahead and run it through there and get this thing going. Also, as you can see, my exhaust is not hooked up yet because I don't have gaskets for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and order those today or at some point, so that way, once the engine gets running, we can put the exhaust back on, and then we'll be pretty much ready to rip after that. So yeah, anyways, we're gonna get moving forward with this thing and get these axles in here. we got the passenger side axle in. It was exactly as much of a pain in the butt as I was expecting it to be, but we're in there. So now I can go ahead and put the wheel back on this side and move over to the other side and get that one on. And yeah, we'll just keep buttoning this thing up. All right, guys, well, I just got both axles on, so now we're good to go there. Get this wheel back on, and then yeah, we can move forward with putting the battery tray in, get a battery in it, and then filling everything up with fluids. And then hopefully later today we'll be able to try to start it. So let's get going. Make sure it's not leaking anything anywhere. Last thing needs to pour 5 quarts of oil in this thing and then it'll leak all back out onto the floor. Half a quart more in there. Should be good to go, guys. So I don't know if you can see it, right at the top of the fuel line. So once I start it and that filter fills up, we'll probably have to add another half quart or so, but that'll get us good for now. Whoa, we're so close. I can feel it. Can you guys feel it? Oh, man. I've been waiting a very long time for this. All right, you guys, so now we're ready to go ahead and fill up the transmission with the synchro mesh. So the first thing you want to do before filling it up is remove this 10mm bolt right here. That's actually your level plug. So basically you're gonna take it out, lower the car back onto the ground so it's level, and then fill it up until the transmission fluid starts dripping out of this hole right here. When it starts dripping out, that's how you know it's full, and you can put that plug back in. Should be about 2.3 quarts or so, but that plug will tell you exactly how much you need. So go ahead and remove that. We'll lower the car down, and then we'll get to filling. All right, now the fill hole, or the fill bolt, is gonna be this one right here. It looks like a 3/8 inch socket, so a extension will actually fit in there nicely. So I usually just take a really long extension and stick it right in there like that, and then all we gotta do is pop that guy loose, and then we'll be able to fill it up. All right, and you can kind of see fill limit hole, whatever you want to call it, from the top, so I'll just keep an eye on that as I'm filling it up. So we'll put the first quart in. I know it's definitely not going to overflow after the first quart, but still want to keep an eye on it for whatever reason. Because it should, like I said, it should take about 2.3 quarts or so. Okay. There's the first quart. Thrown in. All right, there's 2 quarts. There's paper towels over there, so that way when it starts leaking, it won't leak all over the floor. Hopefully I won't let it leak. I won't fill it so much that it's gonna be dumping out, so. Oh, all right, and now we're leaking out. So now I can go ahead and put that bolt back in, and we're done. All right, guys, so we've got the axles in it, fluids in it. It's basically ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and pop the spark plugs in it, and then I'll put the battery tray in, and we will just be finished with this thing until I get that base map tuned. So let's dive right in. Alright guys, so I just got a battery in the Civic and I got my laptop out here with the ECU. So now we're going to go ahead and try to just connect the ECU to the laptop and then make sure that the ECU is actually registering power from the wiring harness to make sure I got everything correct. I still don't have the base map tuned to try to start it with, so I'm just kind of waiting on that, but I want to make sure that everything's hooked up correctly when it comes time for that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this tape off here now so I can plug it up and then maybe turn the key on for the car, and we'll see if it's getting power. Because right now you can see that it says not connected because there's no power going to this yet. So yeah, we'll plug it up and see what happens. All right, so I just plugged the ECU into the harness. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the key and turn it on. Obviously not trying to crank it, just turn it on. Oh, I hear it making some sounds. That's a good sign. So let's see if it boots up on the computer here and connects. Connect to USB. Okay, so it says no available interfaces. Let's try unplugging it and plugging it back in maybe. Interesting. Alright, you guys, so I got my voltmeter out and I turned the key on and checked that wire that I had the power wire for the AEM going to, and it wasn't getting any power with the key on. So I think I must have had it wired to the wrong one or something. The sound I was hearing that I thought was the ECU running was actually just static from the radio because the volume was up a little bit, but whatever. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to head to town and get a 10 amp inline fuse. And then I'm just going to put it in that power wire and just run it straight to the battery, and then we can come back and try again and see what happens. Okay, so I got the fuse wired into the hot wire now, and everything's good. So now we were connected. Now we're updating the firmware on the ECU. So once that's updated, I can go in and put all my engine information in, and hopefully we might be able to start it. But we'll see what happens. I'll let this thing finish updating. It's on step 1 of 1 right now, and then we'll restart the ECU once that's done, and then like I said, I'll input all my information and we'll see what happens. I just finished up the update for the ECU, and then it had me, actually, while I was updating it, restarted the ECU and it primed the fuel pump, so that's a very good sign, good step in the right direction. So once it completed, I saw on a video online for setting these up that once it's completed to go ahead and shut the ignition off and let it sit off for about 30 seconds. So I turned it off. Now we're letting it sit for about 30 seconds or so, and then we're going to turn it back on, and then we can go ahead and start messing with the settings on the tuning software to hopefully get this thing to start. So we'll see what happens here in a minute. All right, it's been about 30 seconds or so, so I'm going to turn the ignition on, and we should hear the fuel pump prime. Hey, it primed, and now we got our fuel map up. So now I'm going to go in here to the Wizards tab. I don't know how well you guys can see this. And then set up. So I can set it up for the V6 that's in the car now. So I'm going to go through and change all these settings, get it set up for the J series, and then hopefully this thing will fire up. So we'll see here in a minute. All right, you guys, so I got everything all set up for the V6. I just turned it back off, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. You hear the fuel pump prime, our map load, so let's see if it'll crank. We're cranking. That's a good step in the right direction. Uh-oh. I don't know what happened, but it disconnected the ECU. Let's see if we'll turn back on. All right, we've disconnected from the ECU. I think I know what might have happened. Let's see if we can figure it out real quick. Well, I don't know what's going on here, guys. The ECU no longer has power. I'm not really sure what happened. I just assumed it was that 10 amp fuse I put in the line, but it looks okay. So I'm gonna look through all the fuses in the fuse box and see if maybe I blew a different one that's creating this problem, but at the moment I have no idea what's going on. When I turn the ignition back on, it doesn't prime the fuel pump. The ECU my computer doesn't recognize the ECU, and nothing really happens. So I honestly really have no clue. So we're gonna start with fuses and see if we can figure that out. Alright guys, so I just read on a forum online that these ECUs, I guess, have a like an engine safety type deal in them, so that way if it's cranking and the battery voltage drops too low, the ECU will go into basically safe mode, and you have to unplug the main connector for a few minutes on it and then plug it back in. And then, so I did that, and now, sure enough, fuel pump primes and everything pops back up on the computer. So we're all good. Whew. That was scary, but that was my first time really dealing with this is my first time dealing with any standalone fuel system. Yeah, all is good. Thank goodness, because that was sketchy. But I don't think I'm going to try to crank on it. You know what? We can try cranking on it again. Well, let's try cranking on it again. But I might just hold off after this. If it doesn't start, I'm going to hold off until we get the base map tuned, and then we can go ahead and try again. I'm just hoping that it'll actually work with what we've got in there, but we'll see. Well, it appears the battery is dead now from having all the accessories on for so long while the ECU was updating and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this battery out, stick it on the charger for a little bit, and then maybe we'll try again later tonight. But we'll see. I don't know. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. This is going to be a pretty lengthy one. I don't want to just drag it out with trying to get this thing started. That could be another video for another time. So thank you guys so much for watching, as always. I appreciate all of that. I'm really excited with how far we got. We actually got the hatch to crank, so that's a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.